Hi folks, this is me pruning my bonsai clump of elm trees, English elms. These are nice. I've had these about probably about 15 years or so, something like that. Now I'm filming this on my phone and it's not ideal conditions, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm just going to park my phone up, if you can bear with me a second. So this is it. This is the before. So I'm going to hopefully show you what a nice pruned bonsai looks like eventually. And it's quite big, it's quite large. It got repotted this last winter. It was desperately needing it. But it's the sort of tree I haven't really done a great deal of wiring with over the years. It's just been sort of left to its own devices really. With the exception of a good haircut once a year. Just to keep it nice and squat and tight. But it's a lovely clump, and it's one of my favourites. It has got a bit of a gall situation. It's got a gall, but yeah. And it's been quite bad over the years. 2 or 3 years ago, it was pretty horrendous with it. But what I usually do is wait till about now, once it's set in, and give it a really good prune, and then I've been just giving it a general pesticide really to try and gradually clear it up, and it is getting better, but I'm told that it's very difficult to get rid of once you've got these things. Oops. So yeah, I don't know if you can see that. It's quite annoying really, because it really does spoil the effect of it. And if anybody's got any good ideas out there of how to completely get rid of this, I'd be interested to know. It doesn't seem to affect the overall health of the tree. It still looks good. But yeah, I'm going to park the phone up, and we'll see what it looks like. I'll have to try and find a. Just bear with me. Right, I hope you can see that alright. My phone's parked up between a couple of cactuses. Right, shall crack on. Some scissors somewhere. To do with it being a bit higher, but we'll see how it goes. Just check that's alright. Yeah, that's good. Right, scissors are a bit stiff. Let's go for it. Now, this hasn't had a prune in a good few years, so it's certainly ready for one. I'll be honest, I might not get through all of this in one sitting. And it does need a bit of an extra thin out, so I'm just going to go through it first, cut it a bit to shape. I could just run over this and just give it a good chop like that, but I try not to do that because it isn't good. So I kind of go for the 3-2-1 principle. You know, cut 1 to 1 node really tight on the top, 2 to the sides, and a bit looser to 3 on the bottom. And it does give this nice natural dome shape to things. So at the top here I go really tight, you know, whatever growth I can find. And don't be worried about, you know, finding the branch, you know, starting in one and working through every single individual branch. For me that gets a bit tedious. What I tend to do is just go in and take the obvious, and then on the second stage, because it's opened it up a bit, you can go in and take a bit more out. and then on the next stage you can then take a bit more out, and so on and so forth. And it just, for me, it saves it being a bit too tedious of a job, because although it's supposed to be very zen in our busy lives, we don't really have the time, you know. I ain't got the time to sit for 3 hours, 4 hours, pruning my trees perfectly as I should. So, but I do what I do, it keeps me happy, and I enjoy it as a hobby. So I'm not after perfection necessarily, I'm just after a nice tree in a pot. And that satisfies me mostly. So I'm sort of going through and I'm just sort of pulling out and feeling for any long growth that I can, you know, trim back well. It's important to use your touch, you know, feel the branches. I like to get in there and properly feel what's going on. Like that one there I was just about to trim, but it's a long bare branch with nothing on it, and there's oh, that's died back there a bit. Yeah, it is. It's important to, as I was taught by one Grand Master once, I won't mention his name, but taught me that you've got to feel the branches. You know, you should be almost able to feel which branches need pruning without actually looking at them, by just feeling the direction of growth on them. Maybe a bit difficult on a tree like this, but on trees with a bit more rigid structure, like an oak tree or something, you should easily be able to feel the branches that need pruning because of the direction they're going and the length of them and so on. Maybe not easily, but after time and a bit of practice. So I'm probably trimming through the odd leaf here, but like I say, I'm not after complete perfection, just after a tidy job for now. Just to give it a bit of... Now, I don't want it completely smooth, you know, in form all the way over. I like it a bit lumpy and a bit, you know, undulating. Regardless of where the branch is, if I'm cut into a much tighter principle on the top, sort of 3-2-1, then it doesn't matter where that branch is, whether it's low, it gets cut to 1. If it's high, it gets cut to 1. And that will create a natural undulation as the years go through, rather than just sort of, oh, well, there's a bit of a gap there, I'll let it fill, you know, and you end up with this perfect dome. If that's what you want, that's what you want. But for me, the more natural look is certainly more favourable. Yeah. I do actually have a nice little wooden table that spins round and makes this job much easier, but it's buried under a little junk and I can't be bothered to dig it out. I'm a bit lazy like that. So this top bit here is getting really nice and tight. Good ramification, we call it in the trade. So like I said, even the branches that are long inside, I'm trimming them to the same principle. I'm not just it's a bit yellow in them there. Spring dryness. And I often find it easier to, you can't really see me, but I find it easy to look underneath and cut the underside, with it showing white or brighter on the underside of the leaves, you can see exactly. It makes it much easier to see where you want to cut, rather than it just being a sea of all the same green. You turn it over and suddenly it all changes colour, and it just makes it a bit easier to see what you're doing. And you can see better the nodes where you want to cut between. So yeah, on the side here I'm going to cut it a bit looser, leave the growth a bit longer. It's growing a bit long really. So what happens is as the growth as the growth gets longer, if I didn't prune it, that growth becomes more dominant and becomes a lot thicker, and suddenly that stem begins to swell from this point rather than down there. Although it will swell a bit down there, it swells from up here, and it just throws the whole tree out of proportion. And once you allow that growth to extend, you lose your secondary growth, you know, which is the finer, the more sort of these little side branches. You lose that because it's putting all of its energy into dominant growth. You know, suddenly it goes, oh, I've got a chance here, I'm going to go for it, and sure enough, off it goes. So yeah, not allowing this new spring growth to go too far. I often find once the first set of leaves have hardened off, you know, thereabouts, it's well ready for a prune. Well ready for a prune. Now is the time, early June, that sort of time of year, you know, you really should be pruning your deciduous trees, even if it's leaf pruning or whatever, if they're ready for it, of course. But yeah, it's a good time of the year to do it. And once I've done this, the tree's gonna put another flush of growth on this year, and so where I've cut all these cut points will all divide and produce 2 more branches and create even more ramification. I think they call it ramification. It sounds a bit of a funny word, but I read it once somewhere. And it's that constant layering of branching, as tight as you can get it, and the tighter that branching becomes, the better. On a tree like this, anyway. It's also another good way of looking and seeing immediately what needs pruning is the size of the leaves. So of course, as the this all the way back. As the branch grows, the leaves get bigger until eventually they reach their full mature size, or the natural size they would be had they not been pruned back. And we don't want that. We don't want big giant leaves. We want nice, small, tight leaves. And so the tighter we prune this back, we keep them small, leaves going, which will in turn create smaller, tighter branches from these points. Giving the overall effect of a miniature tree. Just as a quick session, what I'll do is I'll go through this now and just give it a quick trim. It's the first one it's had this year, but over the next few days, typically what I do is I'll go back through it again and give it another trim, and a day or two later, when I feel the, you know, I've got the time or whatever, I'll give it another trim, and so eventually it'll get all done nicely, you know. Right. Yeah, I was saying before about the size of the leaves, is I can look for bigger leaves. Wherever there's a bigger leaf, I know that it needs pruning. So, you know, it's just an easy thing to look for. Rather than trying to look for individual branches. You can't see the branches because they're covered in leaves, so you've got to look for something else to make it a bit simpler. So where the leaves are getting bigger and extending, it's a sign that that branch is pruning back. So you can just grab the end of those leaves, look back and see, count the nodes from where the last branch is. So 1, 2, 3. I should be cutting about 2 or 3 here because we're on the side, but I don't want it to get much bigger, so I'm going to cut it fairly tight. So it's not an exact science, the 1, 2, 3 thing. It's just a simple guide. And having a nice pair of scissors that come to a nice small point. Good fine point helps. And generally what happens in winter is I go through it when there's no leaves on the tree, and I cut any old, dead, dying, diseased, crossing branches, anything that I don't like the look of tends to get pruned out then. So I only do this prune really once or twice a year, to be honest. Although it'll probably need doing twice this year because it was only repotted last year, so it's still got quite a good bit of energy in the pot. I tend not to go down the road of using refined bonsai soils and so on. I get a bit of really good old rotted down, almost it's soil practically, out the bottom of the compost pile. And I took a couple of handfuls of that into some John Innes number 3 and add a good handful of grit and a good handful of sand in there as well. And really that's my bonsai mix for most things. It's got a good bit of weight to it, so you know, and it's a good soil base. I tend to stay away from compost if I can. I don't like compost. It doesn't do trees much good. Certainly not bonsai. I want good lignified growth, you know, growth that's hard and woody and doesn't stay soft and succulent very long. That comes from using good soils, you know, soils with lots of mineral in it, proper soil. Just make sure it's good and clean, and not like mine that's full of grass seeds and weeds, because then you're forever weeding your pots. But if the weeds are growing in it, then you know the soil's alright at least. So it's starting to look a bit tidier. It's starting to look like a tree compared to how it was looking. Because that's the side I've not done yet. So yeah, it's starting to look like a tree. So where I get bits that may be sticking up, I'll leave them because it changes that, it allows for that undulation. So from this single little bit sticking up now, by next year that will have divided even more and will be an even more established little raised clump. A bit like that one is there, you know, and it gradually looks a bit more natural. That's the theory anyway. It seems to work for the large part. Now as you're watching me doing this, you're probably thinking, God, he's missing loads. Like I say, it doesn't matter too much because I can come back to it. And I advise you, you know, some trees are not half as busy as this, you know, and you can trim it in a couple of minutes. But on a sort of typical broom style tree, especially an elm that produces a lot of small leaves on many branches, and you know, it's quite a timely task, and it's worth coming back to it time and time again. I don't know if you can hear the noises in the background. It'd be nice to think that, you know, I'm here with my bonsai trees living in a nice part of the English countryside, surrounded by woodlands and such, rolling green fields and all of that malarkey. The reality is I live in the middle of a town. I live next to a bypass, pretty much. A mile away from a police station, a fire station and an ambulance station. So, yeah. One day. In the meantime, I'll bring the woods to me. Sometimes you just can't see the wood from the trees. But at least giving it a good prune like this, it helps to get rid of some of this gall that's on here. I think it's like I did look it up once, and it's a horned gall. It's not like an oak gall that's round. It's a horny gall. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it. I should have perhaps done some research before this video. I've been far too organised and professional of me. Just turn around so you can see what I'm doing. You see that bit there is sticking out a bit too much, so you can take that back all the way if you want. And that bit there as well, just a little bit, so I'm just going to reduce that bit down. Let's put that down. So yeah, I'll give it a mild feed after this, a very mild feed, just to stimulate a bit of new growth. And when I say a mild feed, it's already got granular feed in the soil from the repotting, and in spring I give it a bit of a granular feed. But I'll give it a liquid feed, just a one-off really, and I'll probably do it when I water the hanging baskets and such, but just a half-strength Tomerite or something probably, but it'll just stimulate a bit of new growth without going too mad on it. Just the one feed, the one watering can. But it doesn't want to be a strong feed, you know, it really doesn't want to be a full strength, you know, because that'll just stimulate too much dominant growth, and in the second half of the year you don't want that at all. You don't want that at all at any time of year, not on a tree like this. There is a bit of yellowing inside it here, and I'm seeing. I'm just wondering whether it's maybe a bit hungry, as it is now. But at least I hope through this video what I have achieved is that if there's anybody out there with a bonsai tree and they don't know how to prune and they're worried about this and that and so on, well, you know, don't be scared. Providing you're watering it well and you're giving it everything it needs, you could prune here and there to keep it to shape. Has never killed any tree. You know, you don't really kill trees by just giving them a prune to shape. And you can't do a great deal of harm. But like I said before, if you don't prune and allow that growth to become too dominant, you begin to lose the overall shape of the tree, and the shape of the branching will become out of proportion, and you'll have to cut the whole area out to remedy it and fix it, which is not something you want to do on any tree. Not if it's already got a nice refined, you know, established shape. Yeah, it's starting to look good. At this stage it's easy to see the bits you've missed because the size of the leaves. You know, you just got to look for them big leaves, and you can easily see that it's a branch that needs trimming back to some degree. Yeah. Starting to look like something, folks. Hello, buddy boy. Hello. Welcome to join the party. This isn't my cat. He's just gone now. It's not my cat. But he's a good friend. He comes round now and again. Says hello, has some biscuits, sits on my lap sometimes, does a bit of sunbathing in my daughter's bedroom window in the sun. Pretty much comes and goes as he pleases. He's a nice cat. He's called Buddy. He's not my cat. Like cats do, they come and go. They're their own boss. And I don't mind that. If he wants to come and share his space with me, then I'm happy with that. So it's starting to look like something. Quite happy with that. The first trim of the year. Yeah, quite happy with that. So yeah. So there is a bit of dead on here, and I don't mind the odd bit. It suits the character a bit. There's going to be a bit of natural dye back because there's no light in here. It's quite a thick canopy. Hang on a minute. This is going to be tricky. Goes down.